Hey guys, so right now I want to talk about how you can come up with rhythm ideas like pretty quickly and easily without really having to do anything. And I mentioned some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in the previous videos, and some stuff I haven't talked about. So using this, you'll be able to come up with some ideas that you probably wouldn't have thought of, the normal typical way that you would come up with stuff because it doesn't really involve a whole lot of thinking. But yeah, so I'm just gonna dive right in. So all that I'm really gonna do is I'm gonna create one measure, right? Just one bar of rhythm stuff, and then from that one bar, we're gonna create an entire 4-bar measure. So let's just do it. Oh, and I like to, when doing this, I like to just work with two uh, note duration values. In this case, I'm going to probably be using the 8th and 16th notes. It's really probably going to depend on your tempo and what kind of music you're writing for. But yeah, so let's dive right in. Alright. Okay, cool. Put a snare on there. And okay, cool. So we have our one measure of rhythm stuff, and I'm really just gonna be focusing on the kick because that's like what I'm basing the rhythm off of. This stuff up here is just for, to make it sound a little more interesting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a thing called permutation, which is really just rearranging a group of notes or a note depending on the length of it. What I do is when I see this measure, I kind of divide it into four parts. Like there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Makes sense because like beat 1, 2, 3, and 4. So yeah, I just divide it all by quarter notes. Then I'll duplicate it, and I can either go one of two ways. I can move everything in this group to the back, or everything in this group to the front. Because this is, there's a 8th note which is kind of syncopated, or not syncopated. Sorry, but it is crossing over the group. My group 1. I could either, divide it in half, or not, or just don't use it, or just do something. You can do anything. There really is no rules. But because of that, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna move this forward. So yeah, so I just move that forward, and I'll duplicate that. Alright, so let's listen to this. Easy peasy. I mean, it sounds like a drum beat thing. Okay, so that's that and that. Next thing I can do is I'm gonna copy this one. I'm gonna paste it right there. So it's kind of like A, B, A, and then I'm gonna copy this one, paste that there, and then I'm gonna continue the cycle that I was following, moving the ones in the back to the front. So I'm gonna grab this, move it forward. Now listen to it. Okay, cool. So I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but it works. And the reason why I'm keeping this one and this one the same is just to make it a little more, so it makes a little more sense, I suppose. The rhythm. Alternatively, I mean, we don't have to do that, and we can paste that, duplicate, just keep the cycle going. Duplicate. Whoops, where was that? Oh, where'd my stuff go? There we go. And duplicate. And here's that thing right here with the 8th note and then the 16th note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subdivide that 8th note down to a 16th note. So I have two 16th notes right here. I'm going to move this forward. Put it right there. Whoops. Now if we listen to it now, yeah, stuff like this, it's like a good time to like write very polyrhythmic stuff. So if you wanted to, you could like slap the snare on every 3 beats. So 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 1 2 3. So yeah, you kind of start getting like an off-timey feel, which you hear quite a bit in gent stuff. Okay. Next, I'm gonna push that off to the side. Next thing I want to talk about is, actually no, I'll do it to this one. Like creating your own rules. For example, let's say we want to subtract notes, but we don't really want to sit and like listen to it and think about it, which, I mean, you should. But if you just want to get creative, here's something that you can do. You can say, I'm going to delete every other note. So you just go through, delete every other note. Oops. And then you play it back. And that's what that sounds like. Or you can say, I want to delete every 3rd note. So you go through and you delete every 3rd note. Or every 4th note. losing count here. Yeah, you get the idea. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna delete this one. All right. So next thing I want to talk about is, in the other videos you probably heard me use the word subdividing, and really that's just taking a note and subdividing it down to its next, note duration value, whatever. But you can also do the opposite. You can take a group of notes and combine them, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to subdivide and combine groups of notes. And this is why I only use 2 note durations. In this case, 16th notes and 8th notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group all the consecutive 16th notes, and I'm going to subdivide all the 8th notes. But in this case, like these things right here, you have the 16th note right next to the 8th note. Probably just going to combine them to create one long note, so a dotted 8th. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to combine these two, create a dotted eighth note, and then I have these three 16th notes. I'm going to combine those. And then I have this eighth note right here. Then I have this eighth note. But then again, I also have a 16th note right there, right next to that eighth note. So I could either turn these into 16th notes, or I can combine it with that 16th note. Or I could combine this one with the 16th note, sorry, and subdivide this one down. I think we're going to combine this one and that one. Yeah, so I'll do that. And then I'm going to subdivide this one down to 16th notes. And then I have this group of 16th notes right there. So I'm going to just extend that out. Subdivide. Extend. Subdivide. Then here we have another one. I'm going to combine this one, these two together. Maybe. Yeah, we'll try it. Oh. Combine those and combine that. I guess maybe it didn't really. Okay. Now let's listen to that. Okay. Yeah, and you can play around with that. I want to hear how this would have sounded if it was the opposite. So yeah, you get the idea. And then, after you do this, you could do the whole subtract every other note or every 3 notes on top of it. So let's say we want to delete every other note. Hear how that sounds. Or every 3rd note. So yeah, that's what you can do, and this is a really good way to come up with new sections from songs because you can take let me delete that. You could take something in here. So that's our original rhythm right there, and here's a variation of it that was permutated, whatever the word is. Or there's this one. You could take this one and come up with a new section. So you could or not, it might sound too similar. But what you could do is create a group out of all this, like in the middle of it, or so you go from the 3rd beat of the 1st measure to the 2nd beat of the 2nd measure. Just play around with it, look for ideas. Subtracting the notes is a good way to come up with a new section idea. And you can always change it. You can always listen to it and be like, I think it'd be cool if there's a kick right there or right there, or something, etc., etc. And then you just change it and adjust it. This is really just a quick way of coming up with new ideas without really having to think about it. I mean, other than considering, I'm going to try deleting the 2nd every 2 notes or every other note, stuff like that. Yeah, so I hope you guys found this video to be interesting, and hopefully you guys can use it to come up with new ideas and stuff like that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you later.